Welcome to Simply Business. I'm your host, Taylor Lee, and I'm so excited to have you here. As a business consultant, I've helped countless business owners simplify their strategies and achieve their goals, and now I'm here to bring you this expertise right to your ears. Each episode, I'll be sharing tips and strategies to help you achieve your business goals without the overwhelm. I will also be chatting with business owners and industry experts to share their stories, insights, and lessons they've learned along the way. Let's dive in and simplify your business. Riley?
Taylor.
What's the hardest thing you've had to navigate in your 5-year business journey?
Oh, the hard-hitting question. I had no time to prepare for this, but I would say, if I reflect, the biggest thing that has been challenging, not once, not twice, not 3 times, so many times, is the fear of judgment. But I think the biggest thing for me is the fear of not being liked. And second to that, probably just the fear of being misunderstood. I think that's huge.
Why do you think that is for you? What comes up for you?
I think my whole life I've been liked. And I haven't necessarily had to try to be liked. I think I'm a likable person.
Yeah.
Or I'd like to think of myself as a likable person, but I've always been liked because I've been overly compassionate and I've been overly giving. And when I was young, I would bend over backwards. I'd do anything for anyone at my own expense, even if it meant I wasn't honoring myself, honoring my values, honoring my needs, whatever it may have been. So coming into business and knowing that you do need to set hard boundaries and you do need to prioritize yourself more and you do need to put yourself first and be quite selfish at times. A lot of that's come up for me because I feel like I'm not in an expression to be liked by everyone, but I also know I don't need to be liked by everyone. But the little girl in me is like, oh, it's so unsafe. It's so unsafe to put myself in a position to not be liked, which of course when you're online and you're in the industry and even just in business and you're experiencing a lot of success, you are putting yourself out there to not be liked. And the little girl in me fears that, even though consciously I know better and logically I don't fear it, internally I do. There's just that little part of me that niggles where it's like, make sure you're liked, make sure you're liked, make sure you're liked. And I can go into overly checking.
Yeah. How's that kept you stuck?
I think it's so interesting because I've just now, I'm 5.5 years in, I've built a multi-6-figure business, I've got full-time staff, I've had a lot of success, I've done all of the things, like I've ticked all of the boxes and I've navigated it at so many sort of levels and there's been different iterations of that. But for me now, I feel like it's presenting again, at an entirely new level where I'm like, whoa, like I've navigated this a lot. But it is that thing of new level, same devil. Yeah. And you do have to meet that devil at different levels. So I know I'm meeting it again. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily kept me stuck because I've always been willing to move beyond it. And even though it is a fear of mine, I've always sort of led with action cures fear, action cures fear, action cures fear, like every single time. So even though it'll come up and I feel so much around it, at different times, whether it's the fear of judgment, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of not being liked, I really hold myself to a standard in just take action. Like just action it and see how you feel. Just action it and see if it's as scary as you thought it would be. And 9 times out of 10, it's not. And you create safety for yourself in taking action and doing the thing. So I wouldn't use the word stuck. But it has definitely stopped me from taking up space the way I should. And it's definitely stopped me in the past from fully claiming who I am, having audacity in my brand and in my content, and just being okay sharing an opinion and even having someone disagree with it.
Yeah. Yeah. What does your quote unquote next level look like then? Because I think people listening could be, okay, I know I have the fears. What does taking action look like, quote unquote? So I want to use you as an example. What's the next level that you see for yourself? And then what's like your declaration in order to do the thing?
Yeah, I love this. So for me right now where I'm at, I've obviously dissolved a lot in terms of just sharing and putting myself out there. You can't get to this point in business without doing that.
Yeah.
You just can't, because you have to put yourself out there. You have to share. You've got to do all the things. For me now, it's really coming into sharing my opinions and being quite not unapologetic in that, but checking where my language waters down my actual opinion to soothe other people or to present a certain way in my opinion or in my expression. I think that's a huge thing online, you know, always checking, like, how can I position this thing in a way that Sally is going to still like me and George is going to still like me and Mum's still going to like me and my old mentor is still going to like me, or whatever it may be, and just saying it the way I want to say it. So the action in that is me really checking, and I will have to check in this initially, that I'm not structuring things in a way that's going to unconsciously preserve the way I want to be seen by other people.
Yeah.
You know, and actually just saying it the way it is, saying it the way I would say it, and being okay with how people receive that, good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like full, like, I'm just like gone blank. I don't know where I want to take this. Why have I got like so much, like, I'm like overthinking it so much in terms of like,
It's
like,
a good
what?
start to move into like talking underlying fears and how it shows up. Like if you just want to go there.
Where do I want to go with you, Riley?
Riley May, take me on a journey.
Literally. Wow. The way that I'm just, bear with. The camera will just be like, gotta remember to edit this one. Okay.
I'm nervous. You're making me nervous. I'm like,
With that, with integrating that and having people potentially not liking you, perceiving you as something different, what's the biggest fear that you would have of how you'd be perceived in terms of like, I would hate to be seen as this? Like, what's the thing that you...
I feel it's so interesting because I'm running a program at the moment called The It Factor, and a lot of the conversations are around this. You know, I was speaking to all the underlying fears and how that shows up in your business and your brand and your messaging and how it impacts content creation and the way you're perceived and like all the moving parts. And I asked the girls this exact question, like, what is it that you would be afraid of being seen as? For me, something that always comes up is, to an extent, obnoxious, but almost out of touch. You know, and I think another common fear in that is, I don't want people to think I'm too good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people to think that I think I'm too good, or I'm unreachable, or out of touch kind of feels like the thing. But it really is sort of, I guess, an accumulation of all moving parts, because when you do have conviction in your messaging and conviction in your story or your opinions, and you're confident in the delivery of that, and you've got audacity in the way you deliver it, you are actually putting yourself in a position to be perceived as obnoxious, as up yourself, as conceited, as like whatever, insert your word, because a lot of people do lack confidence and conviction in themselves and just their day-to-day life and in their communication and how they carry themselves. So I know, and I've got the awareness, and I teach this inside the program, but you are going to be a huge mirror for people. You know, when you carry yourself with certainty and confidence, you voice an opinion, because it really goes against a lot of what as women we're conditioned to do and who we're conditioned to be. So I think as a woman, that's why it's so scary, because you know that we actually unconsciously cast a lot of judgment on each other when someone is confident, when they are convicted, when they do have really strong delivery in whatever it is that they're doing or saying. So again, you can really fear your own judgment. It's like, where have I judged people for that in the past? Because I would have. So there's a thing for me in that where I get to check, okay, cool, where would I cast judgment on someone for having confidence, conviction, authority, whatever it is. And by me addressing that, how can I then dissolve that for myself?
Where do you feel like, because from like the shadow work perspective, right, where we always don't want to be something, it's probably playing out unconsciously. What comes up for you as I say that around like being out of touch or being, you know, unreachable? Where do you feel like that's currently playing out?
Yeah, because it has to play out somewhere, right? And when you're not integrated in something, there's got to be an area that it plays out. I think untouchable is like a funny one because it probably is more even obnoxious. You know, like I don't want to be perceived as obnoxious. I don't want to be X, Y, and Z. And I would say that in the past, I've probably been, you know, playing with that out of touch thing. I've probably been quite out of touch within relationships. So whether that be an intimate relationship or even relationships with friends growing up, now I've navigated it with friends, you know, at this stage where I may be pedestaled in whatever way for whatever thing. And then it puts me in a position to be unreachable just based on who I'm attracting. So I've typically attracted people where I get to play out my superiority or I get to play out like whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
And therefore I have evidence of, see, I am unreachable, right? I'm untouchable, or people can't relate to me, or, you know, what I say or what I do isn't normal.
Yeah.
You know, and I get to literally play out superiority in that.
And it's so funny. We've had so many conversations about this with our friendship and our dynamic where mine's the opposite, where I'm like, see, and I was just talking to Trav about this. I'm like, I always see it through the lens of, see, I am the inferior one, and how that you can attract relationships into your life where you can almost like meet each other in your wounds.
It's quite literally our entire dynamic.
Literally.
And we could speak to that.
Yeah. And I think what's cool in that is just because you meet someone in their wounds doesn't mean you have to continue playing into that, which I think is something that we've done and dissolved in our friendship, where we've really been able to remove that as well, because we're both doing the work individually to be able to see that and have the conversations, again, whether it's with your partner, your best friend, whoever it might be, whether you continue playing into that and you can actually stop it by having the awareness.
Yeah, and in relationships, you're always going to, every dynamic that comes into your life is always going to be a mirror for what you don't allow yourself to do, be, and typically express. Is always going to be the thing, like, what's Taylor showing me that I don't allow myself to be, do, or express? What's Riley showing me that I don't allow myself to be, do, or express? And in our dynamic initially, it was very much us slotting into where we always played. We slotted immediately into the role we've always played in relationships.
Yeah.
You always put yourself in a position to be inferior to that person.
Yeah.
I always put myself in a position to be superior.
Yeah.
That's where I unconsciously felt very safe. That's where you unconsciously felt very safe. And our wounds would 100% rub in that.
Yeah.
Where we would have points of contention of being like, well, you just like are doing everything that I do, and you'd be like, well, you just think you're too good, and like whatever it may have been, when really we just had to see the part where we just got to fulfill that in each other in a really unhealthy way. And you can also see why we came into each other's lives, like we were meant to see that part to be able to move beyond it and dissolve it, and we have massively.
What do you think like the contributor was for us? Because I'm like when was the pinpoint that I'm like, because I know that first year of our friendship, but I feel like you have your honeymoon phase in any relationship. It's like, this is so good. And we're like so obsessed with each other, which we still are. But then, I feel like then we had that stage like early last year, I would say, where it was very like, we were really challenged in our friendship, even without knowing it. At the time, there was never like, fuck her energy. But we're like...
there's just so much we could talk to around
There were so many hard conversations.
And unconscious projections. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Because what's so interesting about projections from people is, you know, when someone is a mirror to you, you're either going to clock it, see it, integrate it, or you're going to just project like your own shit onto the other person. And for us, we'd moved in together at the beginning of the year. So I think that was a huge mirror.
No hiding.
No hiding. Yeah, you couldn't, because that's, again, like in terms of self-preservation, it's really easy to preserve a self-image when you're around someone for an hour.
Yeah.
When you're around someone for a day, a week, a couple of hours. It's hard when you've got 24/7 with someone.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to quote unquote be called out. You're going to have out of character moments.
Yeah. That
facade that you're presenting as, you're going to drop that at some point. And how do you handle it in that moment, and what does that look like in that moment as well, because everyone is everything. You know, every single person is every single trait. So I can present as the easygoing, carefree, have no needs, whatever person, which was an identity that I was absolutely fucking married to. Like I was married to being that person. Then all of a sudden, when I'm being angry, difficult, sad, and challenging, fuck, that goes against the way I want to be seen. So I'm just going to project it onto Taylor, because that's easy for me right now. That's convenient for me right now, whatever it may be. And then when Tay's being difficult, challenging, all the things, that's going to trigger the fuck out of me. Because I don't allow myself to be those things. So that would play out for us.
It's even been something that you living with us at the moment for like your interchangeable month.
My homeless month.
We've adopted her. How much that even like with how I am in a relationship with Isaac too, because we only lived together with Isaac for like maybe a month in that house. I feel like it wasn't long where it was just the three of us.
And I was always coming in and going a lot.
Yeah. So you being with us like 24/7 pretty much for the past month. Just like how much that even how that I'm not hesitant to speak my needs in our like relationship with Isaac, where I'm like, this is how I'm feeling. And you and Isaac are very similar, where you won't speak your needs. And then you're like, oh my fucking God. And then it's cool as well when it's a relationship dynamic where you can see, oh fuck, like he actually doesn't, like he's not getting angry, or he's like, okay, cool, I can meet you in those needs. Like these, like our triggers can be they are our best teachers as well.
1000%. It's like what, you know, the biggest thing is being willing to learn from someone else and being willing to learn from the triggers that come up for you in another person. You know, it's so easy. You know, our whole friend group, we talk about this often, it wouldn't exist. Like there's so many moments that could have just turned to shit, you know, with so many dynamics. Like you and I, 3-4 years ago before this work would not have lasted. There would be no friendship here. Christina and I, there would be no friendship. Soph and I, no friendship. And I can only speak for myself, but there's other dynamics within that as well. And the only reason we all have such beautiful relationships now as a six, and in every dynamic that exists within that, is because we've all really had to look at our own shit and come into so much responsibility.
And even speaking from the other side, the dynamics that don't work, that's why, because there hasn't been that. There's been one party, whether it's been an intimate relationship, whether it's been a friendship, where the one person has just been doing the work, and you can only like there becomes too much separation.
And the minute all that separation exists between the two, you're just operating on an entirely different frequency and realm. And that's okay. There's actually nothing wrong or bad about that, but you're no longer a match, and it doesn't make sense anymore because it just doesn't feel good anymore. You know, it doesn't feel good and it doesn't make sense. So I think that's huge. And for us, I would definitely say it was when we started living together in the beginning of last year. Going to Europe together was really challenging. Like not challenging in the sense of, the holiday was challenging. But what came up for us, it was just a mirror. It was a huge mirror.
When you're being, again, it's in those environments, like when you're being challenged, when you're fucking tired at 1 a.m. and you can't get into your hotel, and like it's that shit, and you're seeing each other in those lights. And it's again the same whether it's a friendship, whether it's your partner, whatever, it's like, again, because you can only preserve for so long.
1,000%. And from Europe, what we mirrored to each other in that was so healing for both of us. You know, a massive blind spot you showed me. Massive blind spot. Never honoring a single fucking need that I had. You know, I could be like on my deathbed and I'd still be like, I'm fine. You know, I'm fine. Like, I'll just push through. It's whatever. And then for you, probably coming into more like resilience in a sense around certain things.
But a lot of internalization as well. Like if that was my biggest thing after Europe, where it's like, you know, my thing, complaining, like just shut up, internalize, and like it's just like and again, this is where we're literally polar opposite, where Riley will not complain to the point that, again, she'll be on her deathbed, it's like, I had no idea anything was wrong. She'll be bleeding out,
dying, but no one knows about it.
And you're like, I had no idea. And then I've got a paper cut, and I'm like, guys.
We don't hear the end of it. I'm like, bro, you're fine, girl.
this is where it's cool, where it's like this can just be so healing. And it's funny because it's always been this unspoken thing for what Europe was for us. Like we've never really been like, oh, you mirrored this for me. And I think
we now just like slip it in every now and then.
Yeah, we're like, we actually really fucked each other off in Europe. I'm glad you're feeling the same way that I do.
We did, hey. We actually did. It was towards the end though.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the whole time really, where like there was just like little things and then towards the end we're both like, you need to get out. Like you need to get out, you need to get out.
Yeah. And perfect. And I think this is like the important thing with, I love that the conversation's gone in this way, because I think if like this is like the basic shit. Like this is like, you know, navigating relationships, open communication in relationships, seeing your shit. Like if you can't have this stuff managed, you chuck a business in on top of that and it's going to be a literal shitstorm.
Yeah, client relationships, even your intimate relationship when you're building a business. Business is relationships. I think it's a huge conversation to have. And in the service-based industry, it's a people-to-people game.
Yeah.
And you've got to understand people, and you have to understand that a lot of people will play out some pretty weird shit. And that's the only way I'm going to put it, just because it's easy to articulate in that way. But people will, yourself included, like no one's above or beyond that.
Yeah.
And it's not making it mean something about you. You know, you can have a client love you one moment and then finish a container and then do something a little bit bizarre. And if you make that mean something about you, that's going to impact the way you show up in your business. You could have, you know, something play out with a team member and then that really rattles you. And all of a sudden you can't like do your business the way that you're doing your business, or with a mentor or with someone in your DMs. Like there's so many ways that can happen. But relationships are everything, and this is why understanding humans, understanding yourself deeply, understanding your role in different dynamics and how relationships are mirrors for you is so important, because it creates less resistance for you in scaling your business, building your business, and making sure you're showing up in a way that is reflective of what your audience need to hear and what's serving your audience and ideal client, not what's happening in your relationship with your partner, not what's happening in your relationship with your friend, not what's happening in your DMs with one person, what your ideal client needs to hear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will then take whatever's happening in their immediate world and start to like infuse that in their content, infuse that in their messaging, infuse that in their brand, and now they're speaking to themselves and not their audience.
And their content's always going to rely on what they're experiencing in order to have ideas for content. So it's anything that you're getting secondary gain from in your life or, you know, in your business. It's like, of course, that thing's happening again. So it's like if you're always the person that's dealing with weight gain as a personal trainer, right? And then it's like you actually create content off, see, I've gained weight to get, like, it's like something like that where you actually then it's always reliant on what you're experiencing versus what your actual zone of genius is, and how, again, it can be client focused. And there needs to be healthy separation where you can still create connection with your audience, right? Exactly like we are right now. People are coming in on our lives, our friendship, our whatever, but we're also not exposing like some of the deepest shit that we've navigated, because it's also not relevant to you guys to be a part of.
Well, everything that you share, you should share through the lens of, does this support my brand or business? And is this relevant to my ideal client? Us sharing this is so relevant to our brand and our business, and it's really supportive to our ideal client, because relationships, connection, human psyche, mindset, shadow work in business and whatever else, it is relevant. So you've got that little internal check of, am I strengthening my brand by sharing this? Or am I just soothing myself by sharing the story, or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
But it's just so important to understand yourself. Like, I could just go on about that forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
But it's everything. Like, if you don't understand yourself, a lot of weird shit will play out in your business, because, and you'll reflect on it and go, why did I respond that way? Why did I do that way? Why did I handle that objection that way? Why did I communicate with my client that way? Why did I post that way? Like, whatever it may be, because it's coming from a reactive state, not a proactive state a lot of the time. And yeah, sometimes it can be very much content that you need to hear, not what your audience needs to hear.
And checking that. Yeah. For anyone listening, what was you've been in mentorship for years. What
Yeah.
was your first initial thing to go, okay, this is the support that I need in my business. I need to focus on the person that I am. I need to do this. Like, how did you get into the personal development side of things?
Well, as silly as it sounds, I was just capped. So I got to a point where I had experienced a lot of success in terms of I'd signed a lot of clients face to face and things were moving really well. It was the end of 2019. So I'd been in business end of 2020, it would have been. I'd been in business for 2 years, I think, when I hired my first mentor. I can't even remember now, but I think it was 2 years. And I remember just thinking, okay, cool. I've been successful to this point. I don't know what to do next. You know, actually just feeling like I don't really know what to do next. So I'm going to hire someone. And I didn't know at the time that needed to be mindset work. I didn't. I hired someone thinking we'll just apply a bit of strategy and the rest will just play out. And it ended up being about 4 to 6 months of shadow work, human psyche, energetics, like subconscious mind, all this different stuff that was very new to me at the time. Changed my whole world. You know, changed my whole world in terms of how I was moving money, how I was behaving with money, just showing up in my business, how I saw other people, how I then handled clients, how I was then signing people, everything. And I had an 120K launch by applying a strategy also. And I went from $900 weeks to an 120K launch. Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the beginning of me, experiencing a lot of success in my business. And that was as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
That was a personal trainer.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just life changing. Like, I go on about it all the time, of course, and I'm so big on intelligence, but I don't know how I'd do life, you know? I always think that. I don't know how I'd do life. I don't know how I'd handle relationships. I don't know how I would do friendships. I don't know how I'd do business without knowing what I know. And it's such a common theme inside of Aligned Patty. Like, every time we go through a round, and that's my mindset course for anyone who doesn't know it. But every single comment that I get afterwards is, how did I do life before this? So within 8 weeks, everyone's just almost like, I don't even know how I got through my days. Like, I don't even know how I functioned. And it does feel like that.
Yeah.
Once you have the articulation and the understanding and the context for why you are the way you are, why you behave the way you behave, why you think the way you do, how that manifests, you know, in a physical reality, and how that manifests for you in your body subconsciously, and then how that's impacting every single aspect of your life, down to relationships, friendships, career, where you live, where you don't live, how you feel, how you don't feel, what you're experiencing, what you're not experiencing. It just blows your mind. And it changes everything. Yeah. You know, if you and I hadn't have done this work, literally, where would we be?
I was literally just speaking to Trav on the episode I recorded before this, and I was speaking about when I first came into doing shadow work, and, like, you know, that first process where it's like picking someone that triggers you and writing the traits just like me. And I'm like, oh my God, I look at, when I see videos, when I see like a Snapchat memory will come up, I'm like, oh my God, like, I was just such a victim, blamed everyone, blamed everything for the reason that I was the way that I was. Outsource my power, drugs, alcohol, like, they're the signs as well that it's like, that's like before you do anything, where it's like, and you just see people go their entire life without staying stuck in that exact same position, wondering why nothing shifts for them. And it's the exact same, like you said, with, I'd love to kind of go down into a conversation of money mindset, which is like super random. I don't want to go here, but even for you with the work you did, like, you were making $900 weeks as a personal trainer to a 6-figure launch. That mindset work around whether it's like receiving, whether it's, you know, your limitation of what you're worthy of, like, whatever it might be. What did that look like for you from a money mindset perspective? You're someone that's very good at moving money now and having, I would say, a very, like, trusting relationship with money, that you're always going to be supported, because, again, it's just another relationship, the same way you and I have a relationship. It's the same with money. So yeah, with whatever comes up for you as I say that.
Well, when I really became more secure within my relationships, I became more secure with money. So a very common theme of mine is holding on to things very, very tightly.
Yeah.
Holding on to things very tightly.
If you know, you know.
I every relationship, my past relationship, with my partner, my relationship with friends, my relationship with money, my relationship with my family, I have a huge, we'll go there, I have a huge fear around death. Massive crippling fear around death. I can't even explain it. And that contributed massively to how I behaved with money. I've actually never reflected on this.
Yeah.
I'm reflecting in real time. But huge fear around death. Cannot tell you.
It's like that scarcity, the holding tight, like
not letting you go, not letting it go, can't let money go because something bad's going to happen on the other side of that. Death could happen on the other side of that. I'm out of control on the other side of letting go, right? There's a huge, huge factor of control in that for me. So again, this was the end of 2020 for me. And I had saved, I'm not even kidding, like you know what, it would have been the end of 2019 because COVID had happened. So it must have been the end of 2019.
I think COVID happened start of 2020.
Yes, but end of 2019 then. Yeah. So I had saved every cent I earned in my business that first year. I mean, aside from tax and all the things, I'm talking, if I earned 900, I saved 850. Like that's the kind of money that I would put away every week. And I was like, oh, you can spend $50 a week. Like that's it. You can't spend any more. And I was living at home at the time. And I remember getting to the end of that year, I had a ton in savings. First year out of school, and I thought I should invest in a mentor. Like I really should invest in some type of something. And I had found a business coach and I was like, $5,000, I'm going to do it. It's 6 months. Oh my God, this is fucking terrifying. Like $5,000. Like I can't part with 5K the way I thought. Oh my God, just the association with that, like $5,000 I'm going to spend.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. And I had 10 times that in my account. Like so much safety, lived at home. I was going to survive, you know? And I remember I went to spend it, like went to pay the invoice. And then I thought, no, I can't do it. I cannot do it. I'm not doing it. I called the mentor and I said, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm actually going to pull out. I just don't have the money. This is my story. I literally said to her, I just don't have the money. It's not the right time for me, X, Y, and Z. And she said, Riley, lovingly, you made a commitment to yourself and your business, and I'm going to hold you to that. So you are going to do it. And I remember at the time thinking, whoa, like, that's insane. Like she's holding me to this and like I don't have an out. Like I've got to do this. And I paid it. And I woke up the next day and I was alive. As silly as it sounds. But as silly as it sounds, I'm like, oh, I'm okay and I'm safe. So I had such a story around if I parted with money, I was putting myself in an unsafe position. I was out of control. Something bad was going to happen. I parted with it. Instantly, again, action cures fear. Taking action cured my fear of something bad's going to happen if I spend money. Something bad's going to happen if I part with a lot of money or what I deemed to be a lot of money. 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, we had an immersion as a part of this space that I was in. And by the end of the immersion, we'd been invited into a longer experience. So a mastermind, like a 12-month experience. It was $15,000 pay in full. And I walked up the back of that seminar, tapped my card, $15K, and just spent it. And again, I'm like, wow, 5 weeks ago, the thought of parting with 5K nearly killed me. And now I just parted with 20 within the last 2 months. And again, I woke up and I was okay.
Yeah.
And I remember driving home and I kept seeing angel numbers and I was like, whoa, like what's happening? Like this is crazy. And I knew with certainty. I was driving home and I thought that investment just changed my whole entire fucking life.
Yeah.
I know it has.
Yeah.
And I felt so liberated by spending $15,000 in full, just knowing that declaration and what that meant for me beyond the investment and beyond just doing the thing was a commitment to my business, a commitment to myself, and a commitment to that vision I had. And I went all in.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the moment, this is the moment that I go all in. And mind you, I'd saved all this money because I was like, house deposit, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So what I would have done is kept earning $900 a week, spent my $60,000 house deposit, whatever, and kept earning $900 a week. But in that moment, I just had this feeling of like, oh, I feel at this stage I'm my best investment. I had no evidence of this. Zero evidence. No one in my circle, friendships, like life was not what it was now. It was me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
No evidence. I lived at home with my parents. Like, didn't know anyone in the coaching industry. It was bizarre. You know, it was a different time for me. End of 2019. So yeah, it was crazy. And then within a couple of months, I had gone from, literally $900 a week to an $120K launch in sales, which meant I'd bring in $120K in one program. One program I ran for 6 months. So you can do the math on what that was. And then I did it again at the end of the year, had a $50K month at the end of, I can't remember what year it was, must have been 2021. And that was as an online coach.
Yeah.
As a PT. And then I started to move into mindset.
It's even so funny with like the language we use around money, even like I've been so intentional with like really seeing it lately. Even it's like, oh, I parted with this money where it just came back around. Like something that you and I listened to an episode from Rebecca Adahill, and she was like, how money is circulating. I'm like, I fucking love that analogy where it is just moving. And it is
all the time.
I've had the same, like a similar experience. And I remember you were there for my investment and you had to like similar vibe, hold me to that standard where I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. I had $800 to my name and I committed to a 4.5K investment with a coach. And I was like literally cracking my piggy bank open to get the extra $200. And I remember being like, Riles, I think I'm just going to like pull out. Like I think I had 48 hours. Yeah. And you were like, if you like ever are on struggle street, like I've got you, like financially, like I've got you. Cause I remember speaking to like my dad and he was like, no, like if you're doing that,
like I don't got you.
Yeah, he's like, no. And
my parents were the same.
Yeah, and in hindsight, such a fucking blessing because you make it work when you've got that. Like, I think it's that energy of like, if my parents were always funding it, I wouldn't have had like the drive that I do.
Well, when your back's against a wall, you behave a lot differently to when you're just getting handouts every 5 minutes.
100%. And it was like, it wasn't even about the financial thing of you being like, I've got you. It was like that I needed to just hear like, you're supported and like you've got this. And it's like, okay, cool, I've got this. And I remember like I made it back within the first month of business. And I think it's huge to see, especially in business, how much that money mindset. And then again, it's just a relationship, how much your relationships do contribute to how you show up in business. Because again, if you're playing out leaky shit with your best friend and you can't be honest, and then you're not being honest with yourself, you're not being honest online, you attract clients, there's no honesty. Like it actually does have such a domino effect by not doing this work first. What did I want to ask in that around money? Wow, I'm really glitching in this episode.
Sorry, I've been talking for a while.
It was something around money again. Nope.
Well, something on that, just speaking to money, you almost have to come into detachment around money, knowing that when you detach from everything, you attract everything. And I think this is so much easier said than done. And I never want to jump on here and be like, just detach. Like it's all going to be fine. But there is just something to be said for detaching from money and from anything. You know, when you're attached to the outcome of anything, there's expectation, and that expectation is usually accompanied with pressure.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're in an environment where it's very, driven by pressure, and there's a lot of pressure surrounding that, it's so hard to do anything when you have placed pressure on something. So if you remove the expectation, then you detach from the outcome because the outcome no longer exists. It's a lot easier to call in money and to call in clients and to become a match for that because you're in more of a neutral energy. When you're in more of a neutral energy, you're in a much more grounded state. When you're in a grounded state, you're actually a really safe person for yourself and for others. And you are, from a frequency perspective, in an expression that's going to be a lot more magnetic to what it is that you're calling in. So I know that's like a big kind of weave to what that looks like, but essentially takeaway being detachment allows you to remain in a neutral energy. Being a neutral energy makes you a safe person to receive also.
And it's really that energy too, bringing it back into like the similarity between any of our relationships and then our relationship with money. If, as a friendship, as an example, if I'm checking your location 24/7 and I'm like, Riley, what are you up to today? Okay, now what are you up to at 12 o'clock? And then 4 o'clock. Oh, why were you home 30 minutes late? And it's like that kind of energy, and it's like this very
I'm already like,
Riley's an avoidant.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's like, or if it's a complete opposite, where that we don't check in for weeks, and then it's just like no real effort, no real intentionality, no real gratitude. When we're together, we're not present. It's going to be the same with money. So that's why it's important to have the ability to pull up your online banking, look at it, it's data, it's a number on a screen. Cool. I'm actually really grateful for this money. But then also having the not swinging the pendulum so far that it's like this detachment, where people confuse detachment with avoidance, where you're so avoidant of your finances. And it's like, oh, I've got a 30K tax bill. Like, what? Like,
hi, my name's Riley. But it's true, because I'm an avoidant, and I have been forever, really, in relationships. And hello with money. Of course that played out. You know, of course I'm not beyond that. If it's playing out in an intimate relationship with my friends, with my family, with whoever, money's not unique to that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just going to be another iteration of it. And I was absolutely avoidant, where I'd rather ignore it than look at it, because if I look at it, I'm scared. What will I find? What will I feel? Right? What will that mean? What will have to happen then if I look at it, and if I give it the time, the energy, the presence, the attention? Like, it goes for everything. So a lot of my work in that was actually coming into being a lot more intentional, looking at numbers, looking at what was coming in, what was coming out, having more responsibility around money as well. And again, that came as a byproduct of having more responsibility in relationships. So the more secure I got between friends and family and whatnot, the better my relationship got with money, and vice versa.
And even as well, I'm sure you're not going to mind me saying this on a podcast, but you were always the responsible one, right? And taking so much responsibility for things that weren't actually yours. You were taking responsibility for the adults in your life, you know, past relationships, things like that.
Yeah.
And then again, when we look from a shadow work lens, of course it's going to play out somewhere else, right? And then money was, and it's cool to see now for you where
business,
and
any life admin,
literally. I don't think that's going to really change. Like, I think there's also part of that's just your personality trait.
I'm like,
that's why we're a good pair.
Organize the internet for next week's rent note.
Literally, I'm like,
no,
you know how true. Like you would just be so much more settled if you just had like a direct debit for your rent. She's like, nah, but it's just admin. I'm like, oh, babe. But what's been cool to see in that, because I feel like in the past 6 months, you've really been like, oh, cool. Like, you've seen that blind spot in like money in particular around to like, okay, how can I take more responsibility? How can I be a bit more less detached, if you will?
Yeah. But less avoidant.
Less avoidant. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. But you've like come into and then like seeing the financial shift instantly by just coming into that.
Instantly.
Yeah. And like having that, it's like the balance of the energies, where you're doing what's required on your end, but you also know that money's there to just support you. So it's like, cool, I've got my budget. I know the cash flow. I know A, B, and C. I love doing, for anyone listening that doesn't do this, a money meeting. I do this every single week in my business. Make it a vibe, go to a cafe, whatever. I'm seeing what's coming in. I'm seeing what's going out. Even from the level 2, when you start getting bigger in business, like there can be fuck ups. Like we're all just humans doing shit.
Yeah,
someone can accidentally charge an extra zero on your invoice and you don't even know. So it's like that, to really see and have a moment to, again, have that secure relationship with money, and then know, cool, then you can detach. Because then it's like, then I'm not anxiously checking my bank account going, fuck, do I have money?
Or create safety.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, everyone can probably relate to that experience where you go through it. You know, you may not be in it right now, but you've had an experience where the thought of looking at your bank account makes you feel sick. Like sick to your stomach, where you're like, I just don't even want to know. Like, I remember a period where I had so much anxiety around money. It would have been around that 2020, 2021 period. It would keep me up at night. And that was a time in my life where I wasn't paying rent. Well, I paid a little bit, but, you know, my overheads were very little. I was nowhere near as responsible in terms of paying like staff, employees, tax, super personal, like, you know, the 1,000 things, GST probably at the time I wasn't even paying. So very different circumstances. I had so much anxiety around money. And it's crazy to think about that when now I really know that my avoidance contributed so much to the anxiety that I was experiencing because I just didn't want to look at it. The more that you can neutralize that number by looking at it every single day, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, or whatever, especially if you are avoidant around money, the more you just normalize it being a number and not something that's got so much emotional charge behind it. You know, because everyone's got their threshold and almost like an energetic minimum where it might be 10K, 100K, 300K, 30K, $300. Like, it doesn't matter, but you've got this minimum. And the minute that ticks under the minimum, you go, like, I'm going to die, right? Something bad's going to happen. I'm now unsafe. So really being able to look at that more, and it really helped me at the time, just dissolve a lot of the stuff that I was experiencing and just actually seeing it for what it is. Not this sort of untouchable, unreachable, scary thing that was going to either make me feel good, bad, excited, or indifferent. It just is. You know, it just is.
And it's always, again, speaking to mirrors, it's always just going to be a mirror for something. So when I think there was a period late last year where I was feeling really anxious around money and I was like, what's the thing? You know, there was a little bit of stuff around receiving for me and like really receiving support from others. Like, just came into like like a year with Isaac. So it was like, oh, fuck, like this is legit now. So there was a lot where it was receiving. Again, money was just the mirror for it, where it's like, okay, can I actually receive support from him, and moving into more of that in our relationship. But equally too, as it was just speaking, I'm like, oh my God, the reason I felt so anxious was I was investing and spending in things that didn't actually feel good for me either. So I think that can be huge, where maybe it's actually your habits and what you're spending money on. We've had this conversation before. We don't drink. Anytime that we'll spend money on alcohol, the shame pit, and it's like, fuck, but it makes sense, because so of course if you're always looking on, you know, your finance, like you're at your finances and you're feeling shit about something, what is it? Because it's not money's just a convenient thing to blame. It's like, what's actually there for you to take responsibility for? And when you were saying something around, you know, I was so avoidant, I'm like, I don't want to see this, I'm like, for what you've been navigating now, where you're like, fuck, there's a lot that I haven't seen from like past relationships and things like that in your life. You're like, I never saw that. It's like, wow, it's just a mirror for what we're navigating at the time.
1,000%. It's like if you look at your bank account and you see, you know, for us the other night, we had gone out a couple of weeks ago now, probably like a month ago, and we both looked maybe like the next week, and I'm like, oh my God, my bank account, $25, $50, $25, like margarita. Love a margarita.
Don't get me wrong.
But and I'm all for that, but it doesn't feel good, because it's not what I want to spend my money on. It's not what I value for myself, my health, my business, my well-being, my whatever. So,
but the way you don't blink going into a health food store and spending
about this.
Same money on a barbecue sauce.
Totally.
Like $25, slay.
Bone broth for $30, I'm not batting an eyelid. I don't care less. $30 on something else, I'm like, ugh, like that just feels horrible. And it is just so true that, again, for a relationship, everything is an energetic transaction. Right? With money, it's like you're just kind of trading energy. So money is just the transaction. Like you pay X amount to receive X amount. That's the value of the thing. If you don't value the thing, you don't value the transaction. You know, the other day I bought a new camera. And it was like $1,200. I just walked in and just bought it. Like I didn't even think twice about it. And I think we had a conversation. You were like, wow, you just like went and bought that. And I'm like, yeah, because for me, I see the value in it. If I have to move, right? So I have to move on Wednesday, and I had to get a removalist because it's just me, myself, and I. So just a one girl show. But everyone was sort of saying to me, oh, it's going to be like $1,000 to $1,000. And I was like, no fucking way. Like, I don't value that. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, that feels weird, because I don't see the value of that compared to the value of something else. So 1,000% your spending is going to dictate a lot of how you feel around money. But neutralizing the things that you might not like to spend money on. So you might be sitting here thinking, I hate spending money on my rent, and I hate spending money on my electricity bill, and I hate spending money to fill my car up. How can you come into gratitude around the non-negotiables that you have to pay for, like a roof over your head, like food on the table, like filling up your car? Like, wow, I'm so grateful that I've got $100 to fill up my car that gets me from A to B so I can do X, Y, Z.
Someone takes your car away from you and you're going to be pretty pissed. Like, it's the things we take for granted as well.
And gratitude is just such an important expression to be in and to express, because when you trade, expectation for appreciation, everything kind of starts to shift in your world, right? Because it's no longer like, oh, I have to fill up my car. It's like, I get to fill up my car. Oh, I have to buy groceries this week. I get to buy groceries this week. It feels very different in your body. And as you're moving that money to part with the money in a grateful and appreciative state, then oh my God, I can't believe I have to spend this.
Yeah. And I think as well, watching where that you can adopt other people's values and beliefs around money as your own as well, because
and limitations.
Yeah, like someone might drink and they might not bat an eyelid around investing in alcohol, but then someone could be like, investing in alcohol? What?
It just feels funny.
Like, that's not an investment. That was weird.
I mean, it could be for them. It might feel like an investment.
Maybe it's an investment for them to just suppress more shit. But that might not even be a thing for them, but then they could look at coaching or personal training or, getting a hair done and be like, oh my fucking God, I would never.
A therapist or
whatever it might be. So I think to really come into your own values, like, that's important, so that when you're investing, you can always come back to that. So that's something that you've really taught me, even just living together, especially, you've just like really solidified it to me. I was saying it to mum and dad last night, where like, take away your health, nothing else matters, right? Like, the moment you get sick, nothing else matters. No matter how much money you have in your bank account, like, nothing else matters. So your food is going to be the thing that dictates your health, where I was definitely like brought up with a bit of scarcity from around like investing in food.
I would say the same.
Yeah. And from the level of like, my parents were like, mum was 19, like, of course. So, and I'm in a much more privileged position that I can invest in that. So I'm not dismissing that. But when you're in the position to do so, it's like, invest in your food. Because I would even be like, oh, fuck, like $20 on a sauce, where now I'm like, well, the sauce isn't packed with sugar and all of this shit. And I like it. It brings me pleasure. I'm like, I fucking love having that on my breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really seeing what that you actually value, not what other people value, not what your parents value. And you'll always make it work. So I see the same with people of like, I can't, if it's a personal training client, they're like, I don't know if someone will invest into me, but it's like, the right person isn't questioning if they should invest in a fitness coach. They're just they're in the market of what fitness coach am I working with?
1000%. I think there's so much to be said for that. I know in any season of my life, no matter money being like tighter or, whatever the situation, I'm only shopping at Flannery's, I'm only shopping at IGA, and I'm only going to the butcher.
Yeah.
And you know that about me for probably 18 months now to 2 years.
Yeah.
I reckon I've gone to Woolies like a handful of times. Now, there's nothing wrong with Woolies. I'm just on my own and I just shop for myself. But it just doesn't matter. And I said that to you, I'm like, in the butcher the other day, we went to, pay for the meat, and I think my meat was like $100 and something dollars, whatever it was. And I said to you in the car, I'm like, isn't it so funny that I just don't even think about that? Like, when I go to pay for that, I don't care what it is. I don't care how much it is. I don't check how much it is, because it just doesn't, it's a non-negotiable. But drinking, going out, whatever, I see $25 and it just, I hate it. I don't want to part with the money. So the values thing is huge. And I think with money especially, you just want to make every transaction feel really good, because you genuinely want to be, paying for that thing or having that energetic exchange. So if you are doing something out of obligation versus desire, that's going to feel pretty ick.
And something that Trav said that makes so much sense for this, he's like, you can't give it if you can't receive it. So the example he used was around like, if you've never eaten a lasagna before, you can't make someone a lasagna and give it because you don't know what it tastes like or how to make it. Like,
how do you make
you've never had it before. So it's even the same with money. Like, if you can't have gratitude for the money going out, you can't have gratitude for the money coming in, and vice versa.
And it'll never be enough.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge conversation around that where hello, I'm Riley.
Takes one to know one.
Takes one to know one.
Probably same. I know what you're about to say, but
well, I used to think when you mouth off and you go, if 10K just came in, that'd just feel so good. Like if I just got paid $10,000, all my problems would solve. And then it does. Might be 20K. Still complaining. And then you go, if I just had 100K in my account, I'd feel so good. And you do. And it's still not enough. And that's exactly why appreciation at every single level is so important, and acknowledgement. Everyone wants to feel acknowledged, and money wants to feel acknowledged. So if you're just like, oh, it's only X amount, or it's like a partner, right? If a partner does something really beautiful for you, like takes you on a date or does something, but you get home and you go, oh, you haven't even folded the washing. It's like, oh, it's never enough.
That felt like a bit of a personal stab.
Not that I've seen anything recently.
Isaac will do all of the things, make me dinner. I'm like, oh, laundry's not done.
And I called Tay out on it the other day. It was so funny. I'm like, hey, Tay, can I reflect something to you? And she's like,
instantly.
No.
Yeah, I see that.
I was like, I feel like I was like a little bit something. She was like, okay, I see you. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. But it's fucking so true.
Yeah. And it's just acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And there still gets to be that acknowledgement without I'm settling, or an acknowledgement and still saying there's a need that needs to be met. So I can say, okay, I'm acknowledging the $10,000 in my account. So grateful you're there. I would love for that to be 20 because that would feel really good. So acknowledgement and I want more is fine. Like it's
not,
okay.
It's an and universe, not an or universe. It's not one or the other. It can be acknowledging this, but I also want more in whatever it might be. But if you can't acknowledge what currently exists, you're never going to get the next thing.
Yeah.
Like
it's same for clients, right? Like you might think you're signing up, you launched a program and you think to yourself, I'd love 12 people to be in. That would feel so exciting. 6 sign, launch ends, and you go, there's only 6 people inside. How do those 6 women feel? No gratitude for them, no acknowledgement of them, no, oh my God, I'm about to change your life. Oh my God, how can I deliver the best service ever? It's why I always say you have to be willing to do everything, knowing there's no exchange, because that's when you're in a state energetically to receive, because you're in a neutral energy. If you're like, I have to get 12, and if I don't, I failed. If I don't, I'm disappointment. If I don't, I'm not happy. You get 11 and you're not grateful. You get 11 and you're not acknowledging that. You get 11 and it's still not enough. And you're taking away from 11 people that have invested in you. You have to be willing to do everything with one person inside. That is my absolute rule. Every deliverable, everything that's required of you within that, if you're not willing to do it with one person, you're not ready to launch it.
I just love what you said around you have to be willing to do something without the exchange, because that can just apply into every fucking area. And it's that's when it's coming from such a genuine space, whether it's your relationship, I'm only doing this so that you can do that. It's it's icky, and it's never going to come from a space of overflow. Could you imagine that it's I only bought you dinner so that you could do this?
Yeah.
And it from a giving perspective too, you never want to give for someone when it's just in exchange for something. Just for the exchange versus so nice if I just buy you dinner randomly. You're that feels nice for me giving it. And you're oh my God. And there was nothing expected in return.
Well, even around receiving, I remember, so a very common thing for me, and I watched my dad do this my whole life with money, was just pay for everyone. So such a pattern of mine.
Sugar mama.
Yeah, sugar mama. When I came into money, as in when I started earning more money and a lot more money, and that was quite quick for me. I'd always earned good money and I had progressively earned more and more, but then there was an influx where I was earning a lot more quite fast. And in that season, the only way I could soothe the part of me that felt greedy and soothe the part of me that felt like I had too much, or like, I shouldn't have this much. I don't need this much. That was such a thing for me. I don't need all this money, was to pay for everyone else. So if we'd go out for dinner with a group of people and everyone would order, I'd just go up and pay for like 12 people. And I'd be like, it's all good. Don't transfer me. Like, don't even worry about it. And so overly giving and so overly like serving in that sense, but to absolutely soothe myself.
And then resenting when like someone be like, hey, can you transfer me for dinner? And it'd just be like,
yes,
fuck. Like, I just,
if someone was like, hey, can you transfer me $20? I'm like, no, because I just paid for everyone last week and I couldn't ask for it in return. And then something for me in terms of receiving is I've never really been good at receiving, like at all. I can't receive, and I can't okay, I'm going to redo my language on that. It's not that I can't receive. I felt I couldn't receive.
Yeah.
I'm better now. I'm better now. I've worked on it. But down to the fact that, you know, you go to pay for coffee and you're like fighting your friend about it. Like, you both got your cards there and you're like, no, I'm going to pay. No, I'm going to pay. Instead of going, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this year for me, we digress, but it's been big on receiving beyond money, because that was a example, and I guess it was a way it was showing up, receiving. But I've had to lean on people so much this year, just down to like living and being housed and like being looked after and all this different stuff, because there's been less people in my immediate life that can support me for different reasons. You know, even coming home from Bali earlier, I was like, hey, can I live with you for a month?
And it was like 24 hours. Like, there was like no, and for you to see where it's like, we don't even blink, like we don't even bat an eyelid, and it's like, of course. And I'm like, I'll clear out the closet for you and you'll have your own room. And it's like, people want to support you as well, and money wants to support you as well, bringing you back to the money side of things.
Yeah, exactly. And something that someone this year had reflected to me, and it was a big blind spot and I didn't want to see it, was like, Riley, when someone wants to give you something, you say thank you. And I remember sitting there thinking, what? And then I'm like, it's true. When someone is offering you something or wants to give you something, and same for money, when someone wants to pay you, when someone wants to invest in a program and in whatever, you say thank you. You extend the invitation and you make that happen. There doesn't need to be any more sort of anxiety surrounding that, or pressure surrounding that, or exchange. Right? In terms of like, now I have to overcompensate. Now I have to do this. Now I have to give in return. It's like, you actually are safe to just receive.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's okay on the other side of that. And I would say I still have work to do around that for sure.
Yeah.
And I will in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, in an intimate relationship, because it's one thing to receive in a friendship.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to receive money and from family and different things, but it's another thing to receive, in an intimate relationship. So that will keep you updated.
It'll be interesting. Receiving with Riley part 2.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that conversation. I've just kind of evolved. I had no intention of going to like the money mindset side of things, but we opened up our joint mastermind a couple of days ago now, called Strategic Influence, and that was some of the intentions, was around money mindset work for the girls. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, true, like this shit is so good. And I've kind of been on my own journey. I've been listening to a lot more podcasts and things like that lately, because this work, whether it's money work, personal development, it's always just work. You never close the book and call it a day. So that was a really good conversation. I'm glad that we could share that with everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. If someone is like, who is this Riley girl, if they happen to have discovered this, where can everyone find you? You've got a podcast of your own, which you have a shit ton of episodes for everyone to binge. So do the plugs.
So podcast is the Influential CEO podcast. So Apple and Spotify, I'm over on Instagram. And then my personal account is at the Riley May.
Amazing.
That's just me over on the gram.
We'll catch you in the next episode, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of Simply Business. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please feel free to share it onto your socials and tag me. I love seeing all of your shares and feedback on the episode. If you're feeling extra generous, please feel free to follow me over on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Taylor Lee Consulting. And a like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast would be greatly appreciated. I'll catch you in the next episode.